The Roth conversion break-even everyone talks about isn't a date, it's a tax rate. And almost nobody runs the right one, at least in my experience. If you've got around $2 million and somebody told you to fill up your bracket with Roth conversions before your RMDs hit, that advice can quietly cost you six figures. So today I'm going to give you 9 reasons not to convert to a Roth at $2 million with the actual 2026 numbers behind each one, including a few the popular videos get flat wrong. And the most expensive reason on this list isn't the tax bill. It isn't even the Medicare surcharge. It's a trap that doesn't spring until there's only one of you left. Stay with me and I'll show you the math on that one near the end. I'm Mark Fonville, a certified financial planner at Covenant Wealth Advisors in Richmond, Virginia, where we help over 550 families across the country plan to and through retirement. Here's the one idea that makes this whole video work. A Roth conversion is just prepaying a tax bill. You pay tax now so you don't pay it later. It only wins if your true tax rate later is higher than your rate today. So I'm going to walk you through the 9 things that quietly break that math when you have around $2 million, $3 million, $4 million or more. So let's start with the one nobody quotes you. Now, the smartest people in my comment section always say the same thing, and they're right. There's no magic break-even year. It's not about how long your money grows. It's only about your rate now versus your rate later. But here's what even they miss. Your headline tax bracket is not your true rate. You might think you're converting at 24%, but the moment that conversion income crosses the wrong line, your real cost can jump to 34% or even 50%. Same conversion, very different price. So the real question is never, when do I break even? It's, what is my true rate today? Reason 1 is the single biggest hidden piece of it. Reason 1, if you're retiring in your early 60s before Medicare kicks in at 65 and you're buying health insurance through the marketplace, this is the big one. Here's a hypothetical couple, Dave and Ellen, both 62, about $2 million saved mostly in a traditional IRA. They retired early and they're buying an ACA marketplace plan until Medicare. This is a hypothetical example, by the way, for illustration only and not actual client results, just so you know. For 2026, there's a hard income line at 400% of the federal poverty level. That's about $84,600 for a couple. Under it, you can get a subsidy. $1 over it, and I mean $1, you can lose the entire subsidy. Not part of it, all of it. That extra COVID era help expired at the end of 2025. So for 2026, the old cliff is back. So how big is the drop? I ran Dave and Ellen through KFF's own marketplace calculator, sitting right at that line. They pay about $8,400 a year for a silver plan. A subsidy covers the other $25,000. Nudge their income $1 over, and that subsidy drops to 0. The same plan now costs them almost $34,000, more than $25,000 more in a single year for the identical coverage. So watch what a conversion does. If they convert even a little and it tips them over that line, they don't just owe income tax, they lose that entire $25,000 subsidy on top. A conversion they figured would be a low bracket move just became an effective rate north of 50%. But the mirror holds on every reason today. A small conversion that stays under the line is perfectly fine. And once they're both on Medicare at 65, this reason disappears entirely. Which brings us to what replaces it. Because Medicare has its own income cliff and it works backwards in time. Reason 2, if you've got $2 million or more, odds are a big chunk of it sits in a regular brokerage account, and that account can turn a conversion into a stealth tax hike. Here's why. Your long-term capital gains get taxed in their own set of brackets. 0%, then 15%, then 20%. But your conversion income stacks underneath those gains and shoves them up the ladder. Gains that were being taxed at 0 can suddenly get taxed at 50%. 2015. Therefore, a conversion doesn't just cost you the income tax. It can quietly raise the tax on gains you weren't even planning to sell. And there's a second tripwire, the net investment income tax. It's an extra 3.8% that kicks in once your income crosses $250,000 as a couple. The conversion itself isn't investment income, but it raises the number that turns that surtax on. Now, flip side, that same brokerage account is also what makes some conversions work. You can pay the tax from it instead of from the IRA. More on that in reason 5. And if this is already changing your number, do me a favor and hit subscribe. We put out one of these every week, and there are 7 more reasons to keep on coming. Okay, reason 3, once you're on Medicare, there's a surcharge called IRMAA, and it is a pure cliff. Cross an income line by a single dollar and both spouses pay higher Medicare premiums for the whole year. For 2026, that first line for a couple is $218,000. Cross it and a couple pays roughly $2,300 more that year. Cross into the next tier and it's closer to $5,800 per year. And here's the part that makes it sneaky. Medicare looks at your tax return from 2 years ago. So a conversion you do in 2026 shows up on your Medicare bill in 2028. It's a bill from your past self. And there's no appeal for, hey, I did a Roth conversion. Now, the full mechanics of the IRMAA cliff, every tier, the 2-year look back, I made a whole separate video on just that. It's on screen and linked below if you want to go deep. For today, the point is simpler. At $2 million or more, IRMAA sets a ceiling on how much you should consider converting in any one year. By the way, the exact 2026 IRMAA tiers are one line in our free checklist of the most important tax numbers for the year. So just type checklist in the comments and I'll send you a link or grab it from the description. So reason 4, here's one almost nobody's priced in yet, and it's brand new. The 2025 tax law, the one big beautiful bill, created a bonus deduction for people 65 and older. $6,000 per person. For a couple where both are 65 or older, that's $12,000. I actually talked to a client about it just today. But Congress gave you the deduction and then built a trap door under it. It phases out as your income rises. And a Roth conversion is income. Let's take a hypothetical couple, Frank and Joanne, both 67. The phase out starts at $150,000 of income for a couple. Here's the part the other videos get wrong. That $12,000 deduction is completely gone by $250,000, not $350,000 like you'll read in a lot of places. Why? Well, because that phase out hits each spouse's deduction, so a couple loses it twice as fast. So for Frank and Joanne, in that income band, every dollar they convert also chips away at that deduction. It adds a hidden couple of points to their real tax rate on top of their bracket. But the mirror holds. If their income is already below $150,000, they can convert a little and keep the whole deduction. And this one expires after 2028 anyway. It's a know where your line is reason, not a never convert reason. Reason 5, this might be the most important one on the list and the least talked about. The single biggest thing that decides whether a conversion works is where you get the tax money. If you pay the tax with outside cash from your brokerage account, the conversion has a real shot at paying off. But if you have to pay the tax out of the IRA itself, 2 bad things happen. You convert less because some of it goes straight to the IRS, and you raise the rate you'd need to break even. Vanguard's 2025 research on this, they call it the break-even tax rate, found that paying the tax from a taxable account can drop your break-even rate meaningfully, while paying it from the IRA pushes it in the wrong way. And if you're under 59 and a half, it's worse. Money you pull from the IRA to pay the tax can get hit with the 10% early penalty. And by the way, if you're over 59 and a half, your converted money is available right away, no penalty. That 5-year lockup everyone worries about out only bites if you're under 59 and a half. Now, the sharp commenters are already typing away. I know who you are. Then maybe saying over 59 and a half. It's just math. Inside or outside is the same. For a fixed amount at the same rate, you're mostly right. But paying from the brokerage shelters more money in the Roth and dodges that early withdrawal problem. The honest counter, your brokerage gets a step up in basis when you die. So keeping it can beat converting. That's why this is just a judgment call, not a rule. You have to look specifically at your situation. And remember, a conversion is a one-way door. The old undo button, the what we call recharacterization, has been gone since 2018. So once you convert, it is permanent. One more quickly, if you're about to move to a no tax state like Florida, Texas, Tennessee, converting first can mean paying state tax you'd have skipped by waiting. But maybe you're thinking none of this matters because tax rates are going up soon anyway. Well, that was true a year ago. It isn't true anymore, at least not right now. Okay, reason 6. About 3 years, nearly every retirement video, mine included, told you the same thing. Convert now because tax rates are going up at the end of 2025 when the old tax cuts expire. Well, that deadline is gone. The 2025 tax law made those lower rates permanent. The jump back to higher brackets that everybody was racing to beat, well, it's not happening. Congress turned off the clock and nobody sent a memo about it. So if you ever felt rushed into a conversion by a ticking clock argument, you can excel. There is no clock per se, but now be careful. This kills the urgency, not the whole case. If you genuinely expect your rate to be higher later, such as big RMDs down the road or a surviving spouse who will file single, converting can still definitely make sense. It's just not a fire drill anymore. You have time to do this right, at least for a lot of folks. If that took some pressure off, by the way, go ahead and tap the like button. It helps other pre-retirees and retirees find this. So now let's talk about the people who actually inherit this money. And that's reason number 7. The classic reason to convert is I want to leave my kids tax-free money. Great reason, but only if one thing is true. Your heirs are in a higher bracket than you are. Because of the Secure Act, most kids have to drain an inherited IRA within 10 years, whether it's a traditional IRA or a Roth. So the question is what bracket they're in during those 10 years. The financial planning expert Michael Kitces has written about exactly this. If your heir's tax rate is lower than yours, converting is basically you paying their tax bill for them at your higher rate. So here's the honest mirror on this. If your kids are doctors in their peak earning years in the 35% bracket, converting for them can be brilliant. But if they're teachers or they'll be retired themselves when they inherit, you should not pay 24% today so they can skip 12% later. Run it, don't assume it. But here's the reason almost every other video misses completely, at least that I've seen, and it might erase the benefit of converting altogether. And that's reason 8. Think about the last few years of a long life. For a lot of people, that's when the big medical and long-term care bills show up. Home care, assisted living, a nursing facility, $10,000-$15,000 a month is not unusual. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Those care costs are largely tax deductible. So if you pull money from a traditional IRA in those years to pay for care, the deduction can wipe out most of the tax. That withdrawal can come out at a near zero rate. A 2024 Financial Planning Association analysis made this point. Big deductible medical and care expenses late in life can drive your future tax rate close to zero. Now, put those two things together. If you convert all your traditional IRA money now at 24%, you may be prepaying tax on the very dollars that would come out later almost tax-free. You'd be converting away your cheapest future tax bracket. So the mirror here, If you're confident you'll never have big care costs, this matters less, but most $2 million households should keep some traditional IRA money as the care bucket. It's not a problem to eliminate. It's insurance with a tax benefit built in. And if you're thinking you might not live long enough to see a conversion pay off, I hear that a lot, and it's fair, but that's an argument for converting less, not for rushing to convert it all. And that brings us to the most expensive reason of all, the one I promised you at the very beginning. Reason 9, here's the trap I told you about in the first 30 seconds or so. It's called the widow's penalty, and it's brutal precisely because it's invisible while both spouses are alive. When one spouse passes away, the survivor stops filing jointly and starts filing single. And almost everything gets worse at once. The standard deduction roughly cuts in half, the tax brackets compress, so the same income lands in a higher tax bracket. The Medicare IRMAA lines cut in half too, and one of the 2 Social Security checks simply stops. Meanwhile, the RMDs on that big traditional IRA just keep right on coming. So illustratively, a surviving spouse can get pushed from the 24% bracket into 32% or higher permanently. Same portfolio, one person, much bigger tax rate. I know, it actually happened to my mom. Now, this is the strongest argument you'll hear for converting. Doing some conversions in the years when you're both alive, both filing jointly at those lower rates, is basically buying insurance against that survivor tax. I want to be fair to that because it's real. But it cuts both ways. It's an argument for right-sizing your conversions in the cheaper years, not for emptying the whole IRA on a bet about who outlives whom, and what the tax law will be 20 years from now. And honestly, sometimes a low-income year right after a spouse passes is itself a cheap window to convert. So here's my question for you, and I read every reply. If you're married, are you in the camp that says prepay some tax now in the joint years to protect whoever's left, or the camp that says keep the flexibility and only convert in the cheap years? Tell me below in the comments and be honest, because there's just no clean answer. So let's bring it home. That break even everyone chases was never a date. It's your true rate now versus your rate later. The 3 biggest hidden costs at $2 million, the health insurance cliff before 65, capital gain stacking, and IRMAA, and the sunset is dead. You're not on a deadline. You have time to do this on purpose if you're in your early 60s. So here's your next step. Whether a Roth conversion makes sense comes down to your specific numbers, your tax bracket today, your bracket in retirement, and how the conversion interacts with everything else in your plan. That's not something you can answer from a video, quite frankly. And if you want that answered for your situation, just type strategy session in the comments and I'll send you a link to book a free call with our team to see if we can help you. Look, Roth conversion isn't good or bad. It's a bet on your future tax rate. And at $2 million to $10 million, that bet has a lot more moving parts than fill up your bracket. Retirement income, taxes, investments, the whole point is to plan them as one, because that's how they actually work in real life. Purpose, not on autopilot. Now, I've spent this whole video on when not to convert, but there are absolutely times when it's the right call. I made the other side of this exact video, 5 reasons a Roth conversion can make sense. Watch that one next. I'm Mark Fonville. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.